definitely not taking a risk at all has to be the biggest risk ever. So, thinking about starting that project and all of that, go ahead and, do it. It's the conversation on Tier West Television Network, your digital first Pan-African news network, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. And of course, my name is Adesuwa Osui.
And my name is Merciful Ajinomo. Good morning, Adesuwa.
Good morning, Merciful. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. All right, moving straight into stories, happenings, developments from across Africa, with starting from Congo. Congolese rumba, one of the most influential genre of African music and dance, has won UNESCO protected status after the culmination of campaigning by the Democratic Republic of Congo and neighboring Congo Brazzaville.
And moving away from that, French military forces have left Timbuktu nearly 9 years after they helped Malian troops push back and recapture the city from Islamist insurgents that have overrun parts of the country.
All right, away from that, so the United Kingdom government has said that all 11 African countries will be removed from a travel red list effective 4 a.m. on Wednesday, that's today, because there is now community transmission of Omicron in Britain, Health Secretary Sajid Javid told Parliament. And that's it for development across Africa here on the conversation. But before, we go on, we did talk about, the spread of Omicron in Britain. So you should do your part to ensure that you and the next person is safe. All right, it's COVID-19 update from across Africa. And after that, we'll be bringing you the big story.
It is still the conversation showing on your digital first Pan-African news network, TOS Television. It's that time where so you can be a part of our social media community. Follow us across all our social media platforms at TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, and of course on Instagram. It's the big story, the crux of the conversation, and this time our focus is on the need for effective boarding house administration. Joining us via telephone this time is Nancy Pezu, an education and management consultant. You're welcome to the show, ma'am.
Oh, my pleasure, Merciful. Thank you for having me.
Recently, there have been conversations regarding boarding schools in Nigeria. How do you react to the public outrage about whether or not to take your child to a boarding school?
Oh, well, there are still some safe boarding schools, I must say. I attended a boarding school, and it's sad that things are the way they are now. And a lot of it boils down to several factors which have to do with parenting, maybe parents just wanting to dump their kids in the schools without maybe having enough time for them to really groom them to who they should be, and thinking that the school owes them that responsibility. And then, of course, there's the issue of professional ethics from people who work in boarding houses. I think we need to be more stringent with who we allow into our boarding houses as staff. Of course, there's also the issue of school owners who should pay more attention to how their boarding houses operate. In all, I think that there are still some schools that are good, some boarding schools are good, but I would say that there's a whole lot to improve in our operations in boarding houses.
When you say there's a whole lot, what do you mean by that?
I think, first of all, it's fine that you define why you have a boarding house. Is it just to make money, or is it just a place where kids can have a roof over their heads while receiving academics, maybe because of distance from their houses? What exactly are you trying to achieve? Every boarding house must have a defining mission. Some boarding houses, for example, are known for grooming kids in terms of their social etiquette. So you must be known for something, apart from just having a roof over the children. Then secondly, you must have clear policies that guide your operations. For every boarding house, there's a guideline to things that you must have in place, such as a proper admission procedure where you ensure that everything about a child's details, their health, do they have allergies, Are there things that could come up? Are they allowed to take part in all the physical activities? Who do we contact in case of an emergency? You must have all of this in place. I see a need to just maybe grow numbers in schools, and some of those things have not been put in place. It's as if some of the focus is mainly about getting kids in without necessarily paying attention to all of the details that make the operations of a boarding house effective. So there must be procedures, there must be policies, there must be proper supervision. Supervision should form a core of what the boarding house staff do. Children are never left without supervision. And it's one of the things that you must always remember in child protection and safeguarding, because whatever they do, at the end of the day, comes back to the adults. And then to parents, I think they should stop just dumping their kids. These boarding houses are not dumping places for kids who are ill-behaved at home. Yes, so there's just so much. You as a parent probably have just 3 kids to take care of, or 4, and we know how demanding it is as parents, right? I imagine a boarding house staff who has so many of these kids too. There's just so much they can do if the kids are not already properly trained from home. So yes, and then of course the issue of staffing. Every boarding house must ensure that they have the right staffing. Not just staffing, staff who have been employed and are found fit to do the job and with a good attitude, the right skills and the right attitude to do the job. Some boarding houses just employ people. They will tell you, you hear things like, oh, well, she's a mother, so she knows what to do with these children. But what kind of parenting skills does such a person have? Because it's a special kind of parenting. You didn't start with the kids from day one, grooming them at home. So they come with their attitudes, they come with different things, and you have to cope with a whole lot. So there's a need to have people who understand child psychology, and particularly the psychology of teenagers, because the bulk of boarding houses are actually for preteens and teenagers. And this set of people have a mindset. They have their peculiarities, they have their idiosyncrasies, they have all sorts of things to cope with as they're growing, and the staff must be armed with the right knowledge and skills to be able to deal with these issues. So it's not enough to just employ people who are parents. What if they're actually battering their own children and they bring that, into the boarding house? Apart from hiring the right people, they must also undergo a proper induction and training. They must be properly trained, especially on things such as child protection and safeguarding, and then also stuff like supervision, the right way to supervise, and of course run them through the organization's policies. And in addition, things like first aid. I believe everybody who works in a boarding house should be trained. Apart from having a nurse, there should be proper training for everybody to be able to assist the kids in first aid. And then they should have training in record keeping and report writing. They must have training on supervision, child protection, first aid, things about medical, basic things, and then record keeping, report writing. Additionally, all boarding house staff should have a performance management system put in place for them. Are they performing, or are they just there? Because someone might look for a job in a boarding house just because he doesn't have accommodation, and there is free accommodation there just because you're going to live with the kids. So what is their motivation for being in the boarding house? Is it to just get accommodation and free feeding? Because schools will always provide, normally for those who live in the boarding house, at least the ones that work, they may have to feed them, and then there was a roof over their heads, So it's not enough to have people who just want a job desperately. What skills are they bringing to the table? Do they understand the enormous responsibility involved with parenting other people's children whom you did not start with from scratch, who are coming with their attitudes and different things, and you have to start molding them? Of course, there's also the need to cooperate with for parents' cooperation. The partnership. You can't dump kids in the boarding house and think that the teachers are magicians. No magic happens in the life of a teenager. There's just so much the teachers and the school administrators can do. Because I think what's going on in boarding houses is that teachers are overwhelmed the boarding house staff are also overwhelmed. They've had to take on too much on them because of the kind of kids that are now dumped on them. And I call it dumping with no apologies because that's what's going on. You know, you see a child who is ill-behaved and, you know, maybe a group of parents are discussing, and the next thing is they send them to the boarding house now so that you have peace at home. But do you think that the boarding house staff is having peace with those children? And then it's not, this is just one or two kids you're coping with. How about when he or she has so many of them under their roof? You know? So what's going on is a reflection, is a pointer to so many things, and it's not about pointing fingers at one person and saying this person did it right or this person did it wrong. Parents are busy, they're making money, and so they want to provide the best for their kids. And by own definition of the best, they might be sending their kids to the best schools, and the idea of best schools are the ones that have very good fees and very great facilities. But then there's also the part for bonding with your kids and, you know, inculcating the right values in them. And if you're not spending quality time with them, they'll be learning from the people that they see. And some of these people may be nannies, they may be their drivers, or whoever adult is responsible who has not been trained to parent. You know? So we have kids coming into the school. I've been a school administrator in 4 schools, and I recall the cases of bullying I had to handle. There was a particular child, you know, if not for the motherly instinct in every woman, I just wanted him out of the boarding house because he was causing a whole lot of problems, you know. There was always one report. And then you see the ones who actually brought kids that maybe they picked 1 or 2 attitudes. The moment you invite them, they come, and you see how the kids even tremble. Please don't tell daddy, don't tell mommy, because you would know that these ones are actually doing their job. I've had cases where a child was involved in a misdeed, and I invited the parent, and as soon as the child saw the parent, he just started crying, and that was the end of him misbehaving in the boarding house. Just because the parents showed up to that meeting and we had this conversation, your child did this, your child did that. But there are some parents, you can invite them forever, they won't show up. So school administrators cope with all kinds of things. And then some live in denial. When you bring reports to them, they'll tell you, no, that's not my child, he doesn't do that at home. And I always tell them because they haven't found the opportunity to do that. Maybe they are an only child at home, they have not seen others to bully, and have not seen others to try this or that with, you know. So it's a whole lot. Schools need to put things in place in the boarding houses, have policies, have structure, have the right facilities, the right staff. Apart from even staffing, having the right staff, there must be the right number of staff to student ratio, because supervising teenagers is not an easy thing. So you cannot have 100 people for one matron who is old and doesn't even know the tricks of the 21st century child.
True. All right. All right.
So these mothers who come, oh, my child, the kids are doing something else because they will just bamboozle you with their intrigues, you know. The world has moved beyond just an elderly matron who stays there and says that take your bath, go to the class. No. We need agile people who understand 21st century parenting and the mindset of the current children to take on boarding house parenting.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ma'am Nancy, for coming on the show this morning. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And thank you so much, viewers, for staying tuned to the conversation. Don't forget you can be a part of our social media community. Follow us across all our social media platforms. Again, thank you. My name is Merciful Ajinamo.
And my name is Adeswasi. Thank you for joining us. Please join us again tomorrow.